Hey, this is a special edition of the Superpower Radio Show with your host, Brenda Major, and
Mia Dawson.
Mia. Congratulations. It's our first anniversary. I wish this made noise. You get the idea. So, did you think we would ever get to this point?
No. Big fat no.
Right. So, when we first considered doing this, we were both pretty hesitant. A friend of mine, we did a podcast for him, and he said, "Hey, you guys would be great. You should consider doing this." He gave us the information. We prayed about it. You talked to your husband about it. We prayed about it some more. What was the one thing that made you want to say, okay, let's go for it?
I think our conversation weeks ahead of time, because remember, you and I came together to figure out what was the next step with our business with Adventures in Neo, and we kind of were at a impasse. We didn't know what to do, and so I think, and we didn't make a move. We kind of sat there and we came up with these ideas, and neither one of us was feeling either one of the ideas that we came up with, and we kind of broke and was like, kind of left the meeting defeated a little bit. And then weeks later, your friend contacted you, and then you contacted me, and I felt like that was God saying, okay, I want you to do this. So I think it's kind of when I kind of sat down and reflected, he brought that all back to like, hey, this is your next step. You guys asked for it, and I didn't give it to you in the way that you thought or right away,
right.
But this is what this is. So I think that's what made me kind of move towards it.
Is it fair to say that when we thought about it initially, we didn't think anybody would want to hear from us because we didn't know what
nobody.
to say?
Nobody. And we didn't know. We were like, do we have enough information to talk? Like, what are we going to talk about?
Right. So, I mean, this was totally a faith walk. This was a complete faith walk.
Yes.
So today, listeners, we're going to take you back and revisit some of our favorite moments from this past year. And we're also going to preview some of the things that we have lined up for the coming year. One thing that you'll always get from us is that we have a passion to provide information, support, encouragement, and you got to have a little bit of humor.
Yes.
Caregivers of folks who are on the autism spectrum. Mia, I know when we even first started collaborating from the very beginning, you wanted a break from all the seriousness and all of the testing and the diagnoses. And so I think we realized that our listeners, probably many of them were feeling the same way that you were feeling.
I would imagine. It gets overwhelming.
Yeah. And, as we're hearing from many of our guests, they're just, when you get that diagnosis, you kind of freeze for a minute and you don't know what to do, who to talk to, where to go.
Yeah.
You said this so many times that you just felt like, I guess, am I the only one?
Yeah.
It
was so puzzling at that time. The doctors didn't give you a lot of information either. So you keep asking them, and they looking at you like is somebody going to help? Especially way back then, Neil's 14, so this was years ago, and so you're out there. You feel very much out there by yourself.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we expect doctors to have all the answers, and
we do.
They're giving their best guess too.
Yes, they are.
Yeah,
I learned that. Yes.
So, when we first started, we considered several different names for the show. None of them felt quite right. But when we thought about our audience and we thought about the caregivers, but also the people they are caring for, those superpower kids, we realized, and I think for me, it was, working with Neo, I realized that he did things and said things and remembered things that a neurotypical kid wouldn't do, or none that
Yes.
I had seen. And I'm thinking, okay, this is what neurodiversity looks like.
Yeah.
Okay, so to
Yeah.
me, that was a superpower.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then
Most
seeing how
definitely.
you guys worked with him, and now listening to how other people have just decided, you know what, I'm just going to dig in and I'm going to figure this out for my kid, and I'm going to do whatever it takes, in addition to all the other stuff you have to do. You
Yes.
know, these caregivers, I think, are realizing, and I think your husband said it best, that Neo has been bringing out the gifts in
Yes.
you guys.
Yes, it
So,
is. That's very
you
true.
know,
That's very true.
we've got superpower kids and we've got superpower caregivers. So it just fit to call
Yep.
this
It
the
fits. It
superpower
does.
radio show.
It sure does. Yes. 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 Yes.
So, Mia, you remember some of the people that we featured on the show, and even before we started having guests,
Mm-hmm.
we did our Black History show, and we did
We
some
did.
research on some people in the past that we didn't even know about,
Yeah.
who had been diagnosed, or probably should have been diagnosed with autism.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one guy you were talking about. In fact, we were mentioning him on Sunday after church,
Yes, we
about
were.
Doomsday John Doomsday Howard. What
Because
stuck
I
out to
was real
you
stuck
about
on him to
him?
stop calling him Doomsday. Like I was just, why did y'all call him Doomsday? I had to get past that part.
Yeah.
But what I remember, I think we was even discussing on Sunday with him with the boxing, and
Yeah.
I guess I got a revelation with us talking on Sunday, was that he didn't use the boxing in a violent manner
Mm-hmm.
because some kids we know with the superpowers, they could be more aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And so boxing may actually be a negative because it could be more aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
But John did not do it that way. It was more for protection, I believe, because he was being bullied.
Mm-hmm.
But it
He
was
was
also
being
a release. It was also a release for him. Like he used it as a release to be able, with his superpowers, with
yeah.
having that diagnosis, I'm able to use this exercise as a release. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't get that revelation till we brought it back up on Sunday. Like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, this could have
Yeah.
been something negative, and it
Yeah.
wasn't for him. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
being able to use his hands, his feet, and in the
yes,
mixed martial arts, it really
yes,
is an art. It
it
really is.
is. It is.
And as you said, I think sometimes, with neurodiverse people, even with neurotypical people, it's sometimes
Mhm.
hard for them to express themselves.
Yes,
Like with neurodiverse people, I always think about kind of like a strobe light sometimes going off and on and off and on and off and on in their heads.
that's a good one.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
to be able to really express yourself, what better way to do it than to use your entire body?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, 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 yes,
So I
yes.
agree with you. I think he, was first for self-defense, but also it's just a way of how he expressed himself.
How he expressed himself. Oh yeah, oh
For
yeah.
sure. One of the people that was just so fascinating to me when we were looking at people who are on the autism spectrum who we did not even know about, was this young artist, Stephen
Oh yeah,
Wiltshire
yeah. You
from
liked him. Yeah,
England.
you did. Yeah.
And it's just so cool to see him on YouTube doing those incredible cityscapes. And honestly, talk about a superpower. He can look at a cityscape one time, and then draw the entire thing
Yes.
in amazing detail. And there was that cool segment on YouTube where he was doing it. They did it in fast motion so
Yeah.
you could see it all at once, and how he was so focused and so locked in. That just takes so much skill.
Yep.
And we know that he started doing this at a very early age. He wasn't
Mhm.
talking much, he wasn't engaging in school. And somebody said, well, let's see if he'll write something or draw
Or
something. So
draw something.
I
Yeah,
gave him
yeah.
that sketch pad, and that's when his superpower really emerged.
It did. It did.
And that's what's really made him famous.
I
So
like that he only did it one time because I'm like, I got to look back over my stuff every couple.
I know. I mean, anytime, the great artist, you always
Yeah.
have a model, and they're posing
Yes.
for days, weeks, months. But
Yes.
he's got that photographic memory. He can see it,
Yes.
locks it in, and he draws it exactly the way that he
Exactly.
draws it.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
amazing. Um,
Yes.
So then we started actually having guests on our
We
show.
did. Like we were like, oh, people want to actually come on.
Well, we could ask them and hopefully they'll agree to come on. And, there's people who, we talk with people who we know, like,
Yeah,
your husband Stefan would come on and give
we did.
a male perspective because we don't
Yes.
always hear that. And
Yeah.
then my friends Matt and Kathy Feely. But the cool thing about it is you think you know somebody, and then
Yes.
when you interview them, you go, oh, like I knew they had adopted two African American kids. I didn't
Mhm.
know their youngest had ADHD, and we're going to have them back on the show
Right. We
so
are.
we can talk to them about how they work with folks in the school system to give
Yes.
Adam the help that he needs. And
Hmm.
wow, I was so impressed with Stefan, how he has just stepped in to be. I mean, you were just gushing, and I get it.
I was.
you know,
Because I was like, oh, because you don't talk. We talk about it from the parent perspective, but when you were
yeah,
interviewing, it was like he was giving his own feelings, and so I
yeah.
think we didn't talk about it. We're just talking about it like getting it done and results and parenting, as opposed
Hmm.
to it was nice to hear him just kind of relax and like this is what I've been feeling. Yeah,
Yeah. And for him
yeah,
to really talk about it as he really feels that it is a gift,
yes, he does. Yes,
that it's brought out so much in him,
yeah,
and he's able to communicate and figure out ways to talk Neo's language is what
yes,
he
yes. That's what
describes
he
it.
said. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then I mean I knew he had a heart for young people, especially young guys, but I had
Hmm.
no idea that he was mentoring you know other people. I mean, we had Rosa Harper Davis on,
Yeah,
and finding out that he was a mentor to her son. I
he
mean,
was. He sure
how
was. Yeah, yeah,
cool is that?
yeah.
Now, our very first guest was Deborah Vines. And oh
Yes. Oh
man,
my
you want to
gosh.
share a little bit with our audience just to kind of
She
rehash a
was
little?
such an inspiration. We were just kind of like blown away. She
Mm-hmm.
was the top the 2022, yeah, top CNN hero. She founded The Answer. I love that one. I love that
Mm-hmm.
name. The Answer in 207, and she's out right in the suburbs of Chicago, Park Forest, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And she needed resources for her son Jason. I think Jason now is like in his 30s, but at that
Yeah.
time, she said it wasn't nothing out there. Same situation I was in, and then
Mm-hmm.
she was definitely further along than I was because her son is a lot older than Neo. And so she has this organization now, listeners, just to give a review that helps hundreds of families, connecting them to resources and funding. She provides a lot of workshops,
He does.
classes. I just was on her Facebook page. She just did, I think it was a fundraiser, big, huge fundraiser she just did
Mm-hmm.
a week or so ago.
Yeah.
Getting money, raising money for the organization. So she is so
Yeah.
just she just went for it. Like I'm like, I gotta get something. And she went head to toe, just everything. So inspired.
Yeah. And we've actually participated in a couple of her events this
We
past
have.
year.
We have. We
So
have.
yeah, her resource fair, and then another fundraiser that she
Another
did.
fundraiser that she did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
huge, and looked like they were hugely successful
Successful. Yes.
in
Yes.
addition to that. So, one of the things that I knew struck me about her and said, okay, we got to have her back on the show, is that she
Hmm.
doesn't just work with families, she works with folks in the community. I mean,
Yes.
we've heard so many times about the are essential workers who don't understand the symptoms of autism. So, we love our law enforcement officers. We appreciate how they serve and protect, but sometimes they need some additional training.
Oh, most likely. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. That's
And,
where, I mean, my former background was there. I was in the criminal
you
justice
know,
system. And so I definitely know that that's a part that's lacking, that you just don't, they give you a little bit, but not enough
mhm,
for what's going on. You're right.
yeah. And
And how to
so,
deal with it and knowing that the person is not being disrespectful, but this is something that they have
mhm.
this superpower and they don't understand what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Or,
and even some of their sensitivities. I mean, if
correct.
you grab them and they're not
Yes.
used to being touched. They don't want you
Yes.
in their space,
Yes.
and so they defend themselves. And
Yes.
it's just so important that our law enforcement officers begin to understand that, and to maybe even have somebody with them when they get those calls,
Yes. Yes.
somebody from social services who can intervene, and maybe they be the first responder
Yeah.
in some of
Yeah.
those situations. And so we know that we want to have Deborah back on to share a little bit more about how she and her organization helps to train the community
Yes.
that is
Yes.
going to be working with, kids and adults with superpowers.
Oh, yes.
So
Oh, yes.
she told us that her superpower was advocacy, and
Advocacy. She did.
we could
Yes,
totally
she did.
tell. We could totally tell.
Yeah.
And I have a friend who has, and her, she's got a young son, and
Mm-hmm.
he is on the spectrum. And
Mm-hmm.
she told me recently that she got so much from our show that featured Jesse Johnson and Celeste Waldrop.
Oh, yeah.
They were
Because I was
doing
ready to
their,
pack my bags and move.
yep, moving to Memphis.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, the program that they do is so important
It
because
is.
so much of the focus is just on young kids with
It
autism.
is. It
But
is.
how do you prepare them? They're going to grow up, because we
They
know
are.
that autism is not a death sentence by any means.
Correct.
So they
Correct.
are healthy. They're going to grow up. They need to
Yep.
be able to navigate the world. They need to know how to go to a restaurant and order food, go out on a date, go for a job interview.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So, as much as they can, try to do some eye contact, extend the
Mm-hmm.
handshake.
Mm-hmm.
All of that is going to take additional training for folks with superpowers. So
Yep.
thank God Jesse and Celeste and their skills for life coaching focuses
Yes.
on that. And it started with Jesse just volunteering to help Celeste work with her son George,
Yes.
who
Yes.
was
Yes. Yes.
getting to that point. He was getting ready to graduate college and needed to know how to do a job interview. And now he's
Correct.
working in the banking
In
industry.
the
So,
banking. Yeah. She said the banking industry. Yeah. Yeah.
and I remember one of the questions that you asked them, because you've been encountering so many of these organizations that say, well, we only work with them until they get to be this age.
Mm-hmm.
We only work with them for 6 months. And
Yes.
so I remember how, relieved you were. That really made you want to pack your bags when they
It
said,
did.
no, we work with them forever. If they
I
want to
was
keep
like,
coming
oh,
back,
yes.
yeah, they
Oh,
can come
yep. We
back.
got to make a move. We got to make a move. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're definitely going to have them back on. And then Celeste, she kind of dropped this in at the very end when she said that when George was a young kid, he was maybe like 5, she wrote a book called All About George. And it
And
was
about
explaining,
I know. And she just kind of
yeah,
snuck it in. You were like, hey, whoa, come here.
yeah, you need to publish that, because it explains it wasn't for George, it was to
Right.
explain to other kids,
Yes.
why does George do the stimming? Why does he flap?
Yes.
Why does he
Yes.
not give me eye contact? Why does he
Yes.
not engage? When you talk to him, he may say a couple of words and then he's gone. And
Yes.
so those,
Yes.
we know, are typical indicators of kids on the spectrum.
Yes.
But to other kids, they may not be aware of that and may think that kid's weird, or that kid's
Yep.
being. So I'm still going to contact her again about getting that book published. I think that is so
Oh,
important.
and we can use them. We're encountering all kind of new cases and new kids, and so this would be
Yeah,
very essential for them. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the woman we tried to get on the show many, many, many times, and she lives across the street from you. So, and we call Barb Nagel. She's really been, your angel across the street. I just feel like that was such a setup from God. Like, you're going to need help. There it is, right over there.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yep.
tell us a little bit about that relationship again, for some people who may not have caught that show.
So Barb is our neighbor, and her grandson is actually have the superpower or is on the spectrum, and she was a part of his raising up.
Mm-hmm.
And so she came over to talk to Stefan and I when we were in the thick of it. Like, I didn't want to talk. I'm like, I need somebody to come help, and didn't really want to ask for help. And she came over and offered and was just right there. I think what was so shocking from all the stories, one of them was, I see Malachi grown. So
Yeah.
I didn't see when she started saying, "Oh, he was having this problem in school, and we didn't think he was gonna make this." And I'm looking at her like, "Lady, what you talking about? He around here. He got his own apartment. He got his own car. He's working in the trucking industry now." So it's hard for me to imagine him with what she was saying he struggled with because I
Yeah.
see the finished product. So
That
that
we
was real
yeah.
interesting to me.
Totally, because he's oftentimes a greeter at church.
He is.
I'm telling you, until she was on the show, I didn't even know
Yes.
superpower was
Nothing
hidden because I
resembled,
didn't even
yeah,
know.
yeah. Nothing, yeah, yeah.
And then I
Nothing
remember
makes
the
you
day,
think that. And she was, and then even those milestones, she kept saying, like, he got past this milestone and this milestone. And then that gave me hope too, because there's certain still milestones I want Neo to accomplish.
yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, okay, this is going to pass. This is going to pass. And this is going to pass. So that, but the eye opener for me was like, are you talking about the same kid? I almost want like video. I need to see evidence.
Oh my goodness. Well, remember he spoke at church not too long ago.
He did. He
Yeah,
did.
and he was talking about what he's doing now. And he
Yes.
was
Yes.
so articulate and so
Yes.
poised. And see, it's kind of cool because you always say when you meet one kid with autism, you've only met one kid with autism. Because
Yep.
your kid has no problem getting up in front of a large group of people and just going for it.
At all.
But you could tell Malachi, he was nervous, but he fought through it.
Yes.
And he
Yes.
did
Yes.
such a great job. He did such
Yes.
a great job. So, I think the show that we have heard the most feedback from was when we had our special guest, Eva
Oh
Queen.
my gosh, yes. That has been
Woo!
the most popular show. Yes, it has.
Her story, it totally blew us away.
Yeah.
Uh, and I have to tell you, I just started reading her book. I just started reading it today. It's called All Things Are Possible. And it's a short read. I'm already halfway through it, and I really didn't want to put it down, but I had to go home.
Oh,
I had to
cool.
stop reading it and get home. But it just, and there's so much in the book that she didn't even get to tell us during the
Oh.
interview.
See, I'm gonna do my read. You know how I read, either I read everything in the summer or I do it on Christmas break. So she's
Mhm.
on I got her on my lineup
Yeah.
because
All
I
right.
can't
That
wait.
look, that'll be one of my Christmas presents to you. So you don't
Oh
even have
yeah,
to buy
yeah.
it.
That's when I can read in
Yeah.
bulk to read. So she left out a lot of stuff then, Miss Brenda.
Well, I won't even tell you there was some stuff in
Okay.
the beginning, but I will
Okay.
tell you when we were talking with her, the thing that she said was kind of a cliffhanger from the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
Her was when she said that she didn't realize for like the first 2 years that her husband blamed himself
Yes, she
for
did.
her daughter's condition
Yes, she did. Yes.
because he has a brother who has special needs,
Correct.
has that
Correct.
superpower. And
Yes.
while Amanda was in the hospital for really basically the first 2 years of her life, he
Mm-hmm.
would hardly ever go up and visit. And I think Eva was like puzzled and probably a little hurt by that.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah.
hey, this is your daughter too.
Right, right,
Why
right.
aren't you coming up here and,
Yeah.
attending like I'm doing?
Yeah.
And but then come to find out when he was talking with some caregivers at their home, and
Yeah.
he shared with them that he felt like this was his fault. So it
Yeah.
was guilt that kept him from being the caregiver that he really wanted to be for her.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and like we've seen with so many guests on our show, this brings families together, and it brings out those gifts, that you didn't even realize. It actually
Yes.
brought them closer together
Closer
because
together. It did. Yes, she said
yeah,
that.
she
Yes.
really couldn't really ask him what she wanted to, like, dude, how come you're not,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
when it came out,
Yeah.
then she's like, oh
She
my
was like,
God, no, this isn't your fault. This is, really just an opportunity for God to bring out the best in
that's
us.
all it was. That's all it is. That's all it is.
It really is. So, and the things that she's been able to do, very much like Deborah, when you make lemonade out of those lemons
Yeah.
and you do it in such a big way, Deborah's creating The Answer, and then Eva creating community advocates for you to
Yes.
link the services that these families need who are low income, who
Yes.
can't afford what other families can. So there's part of it is, I don't know what this is, I don't know how to deal with it. And the other part is, I can't even afford what you're
Yep.
telling me I need. And so
Yes.
she went right to work and started this organization with some people who connect folks, and they help to find the funding so that families can get the help that they need. So yeah, her story was just incredible. And me, I just think it's amazing that these caregivers, they were, still having to deal with their everyday lives and still trying to think of ways to meet these challenges. And that really, to me, it all points back to watching you and Stefan just get in the trenches and figure this out. Like, hey, let me get my friend to help me write some books for him.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
because he loves to read. So then
Yeah.
you're identifying some other things. Like now he's the boy can sing.
Yes.
He's musically inclined, he's riding horses.
Or I just started with our other part of our celebration for our year. We've opened up into the YouTube social media area that we didn't plan on doing, but we kind of opened up into this
Yeah.
whole different space. And so I've started Neo Spoken Word on Sunday, where he just goes in there, he just prays.
Yeah.
And so that whole nother area has opened up with him that I seen that when we first got the diagnosis, but not knowing what it can turn into now.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're putting that out there, because it's easy for me to then share it with some other folks,
Yes.
So
Yes.
I've shared the first couple, and people were like, "Wow!" One, they were like, "Oh, I haven't seen him in a while." They still think he's the little dude in the books. It's like, no, he's getting big, and then and people are just amazed at how he loves doing it. It's
He
like
loves, you can
that
tell. Yes.
that
Yes.
prayer it's just part of him.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so guess what?
Oh
We
my
are
God. We're at the
we
end.
are at the end of this episode. And so
We have to do part two.
we do have to do part two. And so that is exactly what we're going to do. So listeners, and if you're watching on Instagram or Facebook or on our YouTube channel, of course, you're listening on iHeartRadio. We just appreciate you. We do this for you. Okay, we also do it for us. But
Yes, we do.
but we love doing this. Can't wait to share part two of what we're going to be up to in the coming year. So for now, we're going to say goodbye for now, but we'll be back shortly. Okay, bye-bye.